Okay, I think we'll call this meeting to order. Debbie, can you note attendance, please? And can we stand for the I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our first order of business is the consent agenda. The items that are part of it are listed below. I'll accept a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on approval of the consent agenda? Nope. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you. At this point, we will move to our first public comment period. I will read the standing statement, and anybody who would like to speak, please be sure to sign in. So we are glad you are here and welcome you to address the board at this time with your ideas, opinions, questions, concerns, or compliments. Please be certain to sign in before you present. Remember that we all model the way for our students, and we ask that you share your thoughts in a respectful way. The board's role during public comment is to listen. Rarely will you get an immediate response to information. If there is follow-up necessary, we will direct our superintendent to do that. In order to ensure equity among speakers, the board will limit remarks to 3 minutes per individual. If a group of 3 or more wishes to appoint a representative to speak on its behalf, the board will extend the time for remarks to 5 minutes. A second public comment will occur later in the agenda specific to discussion and action items of this meeting. Thank you. Anybody wish to speak at this point? Well, we can move right along. Discussion item. So the first discussion item is the August 26th board work session. And I guess related to that is the 2 OSBA training events that have been scheduled. I believe, remind me, is it 19 and 20? 19 and 20. So I think the point of discussion is A, do we keep the work session? And B, we also got an email from Renee Sessler saying, hey, I appreciate that there's been a lot going on. Do you want to continue with one or both, all of the training events? Mm-hmm. So I think that's really the point of discussion tonight is if we want to do both of them, one of them, and or do we want to cancel the regular second meeting of the month work session?
Well, not having done the training before, do you think we could get everything done in a day, or do you think 2 days is really necessary? I know we had a few agenda items for her where we really felt like we needed some additional guidance. I guess I would look to people who've done the training before to know what you all think about condensing it or taking it to the full.
I think she put it together such that each topic was going to take most of the time allotted, and we could cut back on topics. Mm-hmm. And or we could probably also arrange to have her give a training later in the year, maybe during a regularly scheduled work session in November, or you know what I'm saying? Pick a time and do it later. I think those are probably on the table. I went to the one last year as a new board member. It was very valuable. I think she does a fantastic job, and would recommend that at a minimum we keep at least one of them, especially for the 2 newest board members. I mean, it was very valuable to me. And beyond that, I'm open to other suggestions at this point. I mean, it was just a discussion point. So.
Well, I guess, Jonathan, as far as the work sessions, does anybody have any objections to going to both of them? I mean, I can't make one of them. I'm moving my daughter into college, but I mean, does anybody else have any conflicts or reasons? Are we just burned out of meetings? That type of thing.
Well, there's some of that with me. I mean, we're trying to negotiate some things with fitting something into our summer at the end, and I may not be able to make both, but I probably could do one, depending on.
Yeah. Yeah, I can make Tuesday. I plan on Tuesday. They're valuable. They're good. You got, yeah, they're,
So are we allowed to select the topics given on a certain day, or does Renee already have an agenda already
No, I
laid
think
out?
we can probably ask her to be, I'm sure she'd be flexible. I'd be surprised if she wasn't.
Because I was I'm a little concerned I can't make both
Right.
at this time, and so I'm wondering if we could maybe discuss what topics would be something that we could agree upon for at least the day that we can be together, in case the second day doesn't develop.
Right.
So,
Well, I like the idea of possibly maybe eliminating one day. And then I like your idea of maybe having another one, maybe mid-year, October, November. Just kind of spread it out. That way we can, check our boxes of topics that we either didn't cover or that we'd like to have covered.
Right.
And I think it's healthy to have those kinds of check-ins throughout the year, honestly. Instead of just having, things do come up
Sure.
and we have questions, so I'd like to have, instead of condensing it into 2 days in August and not seeing her again until next August, I like to spread it out. I would like to spread it out because it's, it's just important, to check in and, if we have questions, we can learn as a board.
absolutely.
And not so much as individuals all the time. I think that's a healthy way to start a new board career here. So, yeah.
So I'm hearing what sounds like coalescing around, try to maybe limit it to one of the 2 sessions. And regarding the regular board work session that would have been on the 26th, last year we canceled that meeting in lieu of the work of these training sessions. I'm going to recommend we do it again unless there's somebody who has something they really think is imperative that we discuss or address at that period.
Well, I think that we have a long list of things that we need to do in light of what we've been through the last 5 to 6 weeks. I do know that a lot of topics that we have to do have been pushed kind of on the back burner, our regular governing board duties.
Right.
And I don't, want to get too behind on that. I know that we're going to be even busier this year. So, the opportunity to have a regular work session, I'd hate to throw away just because, we want to have a break. I don't know. There's just so many things that we have to do that I feel like we owe it to our community, to our district, to our employee, that we start addressing some of those topics. I could be wrong, but that's just my thought. Maybe it's just,
No, those
the
are
pressure of
valid
me wanting to do my job, so.
Well, I completely agree with you, Shelley. Initially, I thought it would be nice to have
Yeah.
one less meeting, but right now, just even as a new board member, I feel like I've got my nails dug into the wood here and I'm hanging on. And so I almost would be relieved if there was a work session so we can address the topics that have been coming in and we haven't had the proper amount of time and wherewithal to address those, and especially right before the school year. I think it's important, real important. I would agree.
Yeah, I guess if we're going to cut the training down to 1 day, I would be in support of going ahead and having that work session. If we were going to have 2 training days and a work session, I'd say, okay.
That's
But if
different.
we're cutting down
Right.
training days, then I would be supportive of having.
Yeah.
Any other, you're good with that, Tom? What do you think?
Yeah, sounds fine.
I think it sounds good to me. I will work with Renee to figure out what day and what, if she has a particular one that's way better. I know you can't make one of them, Tom, but, I suspect the topic we will keep is going to primarily be around the boardsmanship and board member stuff. And it may not be a big deal if you missed it, but anyway.
Yeah, I've seen it. I'll relay my observations of topics as I was chair for a little bit and saw some questions coming through that
Yeah,
might
right.
be touched base with.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that's what I'll work with her. I'll keep you posted, and we'll see what she has to say about date and time and try to firm that up now. I mean, we have dates scheduled, but we'll drop them.
Okay.
And if there are specific agenda items you want on the August 26th, that's what you were talking about, right? We need, send them my way so that we make sure we cover things that are important.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the August 26th before we move on? August 26th. Okay, any other items up for discussion? Okay, with that, we're going to move straight into the administrator and staff reports, food service rates for 2019-2020.
Good evening, and you are getting this information from me via Steve Nielsen, business manager who's unable to be here. So hopefully the information he provided me helps you understand this process. So school districts participate in the National School Lunch Reimbursement Program. Schools that participate in that are also have to meet a requirement called the Paid Lunch Equity, which means it serves the purpose to make sure that federal funds intended for free and reduced price lunches are not subsidizing paid student meals. So in that process, each district has to meet a weighting requirement. So when Steve and his team ran the paid lunch equity to make sure that we were not subsidizing paid student meals, that tool indicated that we need to increase our weighted prices by an average of 9 cents. And so included in your information is this last year's prices and next year's prices. So that attachment puts us in compliance for the 2019-20 school year. Last year, using the paid lunch equity program, we did not have to increase meal prices last year.
Now, I know that, this is sort of coming from Steve, who's been evaluating this. Do you know if, does he have a projection on if we raised it by this much, if it would also impact our bottom line at the end of the year? We've been running a negative balance on programs.
Yeah, he did not indicate that at all. I don't think that's its objective. Its
No.
objective is to stay within the National School Lunch Reimbursement Program. So he did not add that to his report to me.
I only ask because it's come up in the past.
I know it's come up. I know it's a topic of discussion for Steve and the lunch team to address that issue. But I would probably look at this as a separate.
Yeah. Okay. The question, I guess, that I have for you or Steve is this something that you're sort of floating? Is this something that's locked? Are you still up for, is it any part of the evaluation still occurring?
I mean, the way I read what he's provided, it feels, did you use the term lock as far as that goes? It feels like that to me in what I read. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions or discussion on this topic?
No, seems like modest increases across the board, nothing seems appropriate.
Okay. Next up, we have an update. Dan and Michelle are going to give us an update on the speed bumps. Thanks, guys.
So as you know, on the July 8th board meeting, Michelle Stadley and Sarah Barth came and presented to you on behalf of SFEA. And before we address that, I want to thank SFEA for welcoming me to Silver Falls. Michelle and Frank Petrick reached out to me before even my first day, and we got together for breakfast, and we talked a little bit about their roles and their really just kind of their own experiences coming within the district and my experiences prior to arriving here. And then also just appreciate that after that board meeting that Michelle and Sarah reached out. I think it was kind of mutual that, you know, let's get together and talk about her. They had presented a list of recommendations or things that they thought would help improve relations between SFSD and SFEA. And so we spent probably 2 hours together going through that list and just kind of brainstorming ideas about what that could look like. And so I reached out to Michelle, or we've actually probably talked at least once a week since my arrival here, and thought it would be good to update you on just some of the brainstorming ideas that we've had. So I asked Michelle to kind of present that, and I might add a few touches myself. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay. So in that list that we presented, there were 8 different ideas of ways to kind of move forward. And so Dan and I, we've talked about all of them in that meeting, and a couple of them are current bargaining issues, so we'll just kind of leave that at the bargaining table. But some of the things that we talked about that we thought would be good for you guys to hear, just kind of where we're at on those and what we're thinking about those. One was, we had talked about the idea of having a third-party facilitator between SFEA building reps at the high school and high school administration during their monthly SFEA rep meetings. We try to, so our building reps, we try to have a monthly check-in with building admin. And so we had talked about having a third-party facilitator be present at those meetings, just to make sure that everybody walks away from that meeting with a common message and a common understanding of any next steps and kind of what had been discussed. And so Dan had a couple of ideas about potential people to fill that role. Our SHS building reps are on board with that idea.
No, that pretty well covers it. Just have a facilitator there, and you know, maybe establishing an agreed upon protocol, no, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Another idea that we had, and this was after surveying members from different buildings and hearing stories from their perspective of the way that different administrators handle the evaluation process, was the idea of a Danielson training, just to kind of get all of our administrators totally on the same page and just a little bit more consistency in what our members are seeing within their buildings from different administrators. So that was an idea that we had talked about. And then based on the arbitration settlement agreement, there is to be a labor relationship training that would be, we had talked about having probably an OEA lawyer and the district lawyer potentially coming and doing a joint training of SFEA leadership, potentially building representatives, and then building administrators as well, just so that we're all on the same page as to what the legalities are when it comes to labor management relationships, what's appropriate, what's, where the lines are, that sort of thing. So we need to look into that towards the beginning of the year, figuring out who's going to do that training, when, that sort of thing. So we know that's coming, we just haven't figured out when yet. And then another thing that we had talked about was the potential for SFEA to have a standing agenda item on the board's agenda. And after discussion with Dan, we thought that could happen in a few different ways, like a variety of ways. And honestly, that is kind of up to you guys, how often you want to hear from us. So, and whether you would like it to be more of a rotation, or if it's monthly, or if you'd like that to be kind of a joint presentation like this, where we're talking about labor management relations and like how things are going in that regard. So that's kind of some work for you guys to do, to discuss and see what your preference would be. And we're willing to come monthly. We're willing, to come as often as you'd like. So, and then we just talked about having more open lines of communication between SFEA leadership and the district office. And, Dan, I really appreciate how easy it's been to approach you and to have these conversations with you. And he's been really great about being objective and thinking about things from multiple perspectives. And I think that's been really important in these conversations. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. And I would just have to add to that a couple of additional maybe details to that list. Is that the administrative team, stands behind these recommendations or these brainstormed ideas. The Wade Lockett and his team at the high school is very open to that facilitative process. Jennifer Hannon with the teaching and learning has, definitely, as far as the Danielson evaluation framework, is ready and has even acknowledged that calibration amongst the use of the evaluation system through Danielson is needed. Anytime you have 13 schools and different people using a very subjective tool, calibration is always going to be required. So we stand ready to do that. The labor management roles and responsibilities, our administrative team is excited to do that. I think if you put an OEA rep and a school, an attorney for a school district together, those folks, while in certain circumstances may be on opposite sides of a table, when you remove that, they actually play pretty nice together, because they do have the same objective, and that's to support kids and support teachers. And our admin team talked about different articles within the contract. We talked about different questions that SFEA could bring forward to give those presenters some things to talk about to the group. And so those are some of the ideas the administrative team had. And again, I think the idea of either, like Michelle said, it is up to you, the role that SFEA would have in terms of their frequency, I guess, if you will, to present to the board is really your decision. So, but just wanted to update you the work that we've done over the last month since her and Sarah presented.
Really appreciate it. I mean, that's fantastic. I think as far as the frequency and format, as far as you guys presented, I think to some extent we'll probably have to kind of see how the next month or so goes and figure out what's going to make sense there.
Sure.
My hunch is, even this presentation was fantastic. I love the idea of being joint, right? And so dialogue has really been fantastic. I'll let other people wait. I think it was great, and I think we could continue that format personally.
I do like the joint format as well, and one thing that we've talked about at the negotiating table is making forum a better place to get things, communicated, and so maybe that can be part of your presentation too, just kind of results from that body, so that we know what's going on.
I deeply appreciate what I just saw, and I think we need more of this open dialogue and communication and in this public forum. And frankly, I think it'd be wonderful to have you come each month and present, especially as we're navigating ourselves down the river, floating along. So yeah, I would love that. I'm really encouraged by what I just saw, and I think it's fantastic. Deeply appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds good. Good. Nice presentation. Could it be possible to get your suggestions just typed up and sent to us, kind of that way?
Yeah, we can do that.
That way your words, we know exactly what your thoughts are, and then we can.
I'll put something together, run it by Michelle to make sure it reads the right way, and then we'll share it with you.
And I just wanted to commend all of you for, I know you guys are working through some really difficult things in bargaining, and I just want to commend you for that and encourage you to, to keep going, and I just think everyone's trying really, really hard, and I really appreciate that. Thank you both.
My turn. Listen, you know what, I'm very happy to hear this, and I'm really happy to see both of you here. The language that you used tonight is very encouraging for, a healthy relationship amongst so many different people, and that is only proactive and positive moving forward. So I commend you for your hard work, and keep it going, and I would love to hear from you often. It would be great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Okay, next up, we have board reports. Anybody have something they'd like to share tonight?
Would anybody like to talk about band? Any learnings that has been, I mean, it's been so long.
That was a long, long time ago.
Feels like it was long. Feels like it was a long time ago.
It was excellent. I look forward to the November conference, and it's really, it was really great. It's always a surprise. I've only been to one previously, which was the November one in Portland. You just never know what kinds of nuggets you're going to get, and so it was. I'm glad I was able to go. It's very good.
Yeah, I think, well, 5 of the 6 of us were there, I believe, right? That's
Yeah,
right.
5 of us
Yes.
out of
So,
the 6, yeah.
Pretty good attendance. It was a great conference. Some of the sessions were really fantastic, so definitely would go again.
And, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, excuse me. I deeply appreciate too, just by the way things have fallen, I've gotten to know each of you much better too, just being on here since July 1st. And it's, I'm very grateful that we have the openness that we do. And although we may not always agree, which is, anytime there's just one more person, there's another perception. But I like the fact that we can discuss things and be very open and talk about that. So the communication, again, is just golden, and I deeply appreciate it.
Well said.
I always think that the Bend conference is, and the conference in November, they're always wonderful opportunities for us as a board to, learn even more information from OSBA on multiple different topics. But the discussions that we can have as a board at those conferences are vital to our work that we do up here. And the education that we learn it's just so important, and as much as the social interaction is. So, I appreciate everybody being there and the discussions, and I look forward to November as well. So, thank you.
I guess I just had one learning that I wanted to share, and it's something that I actually have ready to distribute to you guys, but then we've just been busy with other things. In the pre-conference, the discussion was around equity and data, and the data that was presented was from Forecast 5 from OSBA, and I talked to Steve later, and it sounds like we subscribe to Forecast 5. And the data that I received might have been old data, but the point was that it was presented really well, and you could see a lot of good comparisons. And the key is you can compare to other school districts. And you can hover over these little dots that are your comparators, and it will tell you who it is. So if there's somebody doing something better than you are doing, you can say, hey, what are you doing about this situation, so that we can learn from that. So it's pretty powerful, and you can change who the comparators are. Like the comparators were Woodburn and McMinnville, people who are close by and similarly sized, but you could change it. Like I know we like to compare ourselves to Hood River a lot. You could change it to Hood River. So I just wanted to lets you know that that's information that I think we have access to, that we just have to ask for. And it presents things in a very, I guess, targeted way so that it tells a good story.
Very good.
I thought of one more thing while you were sharing that. It popped in my head that the session that I went to on the Student Success Act was really interesting. You know, that's kind of breaking news, cutting edge kind of stuff, right? I mean, stuff that, you know, you'd have to really follow it closely to understand it all. But I actually had no idea some of the pieces that were in there, and it's rather comprehensive. There's a lot to it, and they broke it down into several key sections and kind of explained it, you know, bit by bit. And then they thankfully listed out all the things that are still sort of up in the air too, because there's a number of things yet to, I think, be ironed out. But one of the things that seemed pretty clear is that we're going to have to be on top of it in short order. And so, you know, it was good to kind of get that understanding and that perspective.
I think I did see a Student Success Act learning event from OSBA come across my email. So if you're interested in that, there's something coming up from OSBA. Well, if nobody has anything else from Ben, I can report on negotiations. So I have a long written report, so I will probably read a lot to you so that I make sure I'm on target here. So I came into the negotiating process after it had already started. April 23rd was the first day, and I came in on July 23rd. And I participated in one planning session with admin and our acting superintendent and legal counsel. Jonathan was at that session, the same session, as well. And then I also participated on August 5th. So I've been to the last two. And if you've not been in on negotiations before, it was all new to me. The way it works is that the team from SFEA sits on one side of the table and the team from SFSD sits on the other. Each side takes turns proposing the changes to the established collective bargaining agreement. And then each side takes turns responding. And so the way I understand it is that the district started by offering to roll over the most current or the most recent contract, I don't know if we can call it current anymore, with ACOLA, and then that was not agreeable. And so from there, both sides have made proposals. And during the two sessions that I was at, both sides rescinded requests. SFEA rolled back a proposed sick leave bank, and SFSD rolled back a proposed change to the tuition and professional development article. And I think that one was aimed towards growing your own, but it wasn't very understandable, and there were a lot of questions. So it's something I think that may be pursuable in the future, but just to make things simple, it was removed. SFSD has tentatively agreed, that's a big word, tentatively agreed, it's called the TA, tentatively agreed to several language changes proposed by SFEA and presented counter proposals to others. SFEA has proposed more changes to the CBA than in past negotiation years. And so far, the financials offered are a 3% increase for 2019-2020, a 2.5% increase for 2020-2021, and a 2% increase for 2021 and 2022. SFEA proposed a $400 a month opt-out payment. So if you don't take insurance, you would instead get $400. And SFSD has verbally said that they would be open to a $400 contribution to a tax sheltered annuity or account. There has been an increase in the monetary credit for unused personal days from 146 to 149 per day. And then I figured out that one of the reasons it's good to have somebody like a board member present is so that in the caucus can benefit from a board member's opinion on whether a suggestion would likely find acceptance from the board. And so two requests from SFEA that have come up that I want to specifically bring to the board because I think they need to be discussed as a board, and any policy and procedures would stem from here, in my opinion. I mean, we can talk about that, but that's, as a representative, that's why I'm bringing them back here. The first one is the idea of children of certified staff being given preference in the inter-district transfer process. If a teacher works at a school and that school is not in the attendance boundary where they live, SFEA would like the teacher's child to be given preference in the transfer procedure. So we already have a transfer procedure, and so the idea is that we could incorporate potentially that idea into that process. My opinion that I stated during negotiations was that I think we need to talk to principals about that and have a community input, a chance for community input, because that would affect community members. So that was the one thing that I thought was really not necessarily something that should be decided at the negotiation table, but was something that we needed to weigh in on. And then the second thing was teacher input into the superintendent evaluation. That's an ask. One thing that I pretty strongly feel is that it's the board's job to evaluate the superintendent. And at the conference, it does appear that OSBA is moving towards, like right now, our superintendent evaluation process is aligned pretty much with OSBA, but they're moving towards a 360 or targeted 360 option. Where you get specific information that you're looking for, and OSBA would provide the tools for that. And so it's not just, it's not a super comprehensive, like everything under the sun would go out to all sorts of people, but targeted things. And so my comment during negotiations was that is something that is starting to be, pushed by OSBA and an option, and so I assumed that that's something that we would be discussing, especially as we work with a new superintendent. And so I pledged that we would, I would bring it to you, that I don't have any power other than bringing it to you to discuss that option, but I'm not sure that that necessarily needs to be in a contract, a collective bargaining agreement. But I do think that that's something that it is our responsibility, and I wanted to just bring that up here. So that's my report. Sorry it was so long and I read it, but if you have questions, let me know.
Do you want some feedback, Jennifer?
I can take feedback, but I don't think we need feedback at this point. The two ideas that I'm bringing are things that we can choose to put on our future agenda to discuss. Those two things, and if they, if we agree, then we will discuss them. But for right now, those are just my report.
Can I ask a clarifying question about the first issue, which was the preference for transfer? Get closer to my mic. Would that, I'm assuming that would just be transferred to the school that where the teacher works and no other schools? It would be.
That was, yes.
That was my impression.
Yes,
That would be my
it's trying
understanding.
to make the employee's day run more smoothly because they don't have to go make an extra stop.
Got it, okay.
Which I think everybody would agree is something that we would want to do if we can, but we need to look at more of the issue.
Sure, yeah.
When's your next bargaining session?
I do not know the answer to that. We don't have one on the books right now.
I'm just trying to think when, a minute, I have some thoughts, I'd like to give them to you, but they have to get to you before.
Well, we don't have there's nothing on the books, and I might not be available to be a representative at that point because I have to go back to my day job.
I'll weigh in a little bit. So
What's the next step? There's some topics you want input, how do we do this? What's the
first and foremost, I think having them as future agenda items is probably smart.
Okay.
Right, we've had
Okay.
stacked
Yes.
agendas the last month.
Okay.
So, but these are in the backlog of items that I think we ought to
Okay.
begin bringing up. And so when we do that, we can have we can dig in a little deeper. You'll have time ahead of time to know what's on the agenda and think about thoughts, et cetera. The other thing to mention is that while we don't know when the next bargaining session is, I was able to make it to one for for work purposes, I actually couldn't make it to the second one, but I have been involved sort of all along in the background, at least looking at things going on and talking with Dan and, having conversations. So we've stayed involved. We certainly will continue to do that. If you have specific thoughts you want to share on that, or frankly, anything else, by all means, let us know.
Yeah.
And, we'll be able to, one or both of us, I'm sure, will be able to make it, I would hope, so.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that those two topics are something that perhaps could go in August, but maybe, well, I don't know, maybe not, I don't know, just ideas that do we want to talk about this? I think if we suggest that we do, I think that might go a long way in showing that we're making efforts, and I think that that's important at this point. Yeah.
I'm certainly open to them being agenda items, especially the transfer one. I think there's a lot of room for public comment, as you said, on that one. I want to give lots of opportunity for people to hear about it, raise concerns if they have it, for that to be very open and transparent.
Well, and we need to report probably from administration about impacts that we
Absolutely.
don't see.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Totally agree. Anybody else have any board reports? No? Okay. Well, we're going to move into our second public comment, limited to discussion and action items. Anybody wish to address the board?
Board Chair, could I ask, recommend that you add an action item? And I just want to make sure the public was aware of that before that, and that would be the food service rates does need to be an action item for tonight.
Okay.
And so if anyone in the public wanted to do that, wanted to make sure that you were aware of that so that they were aware of that.
Thank you. I will accept a motion to add an action item to approve the rates as described by Steve tonight.
I'll second.
You'll move.
Or move.
and-
Well, I think you said, do we have?
Well, I said I'll accept the motion.
No, I think the board chair can do it.
Maybe I
Oh.
can.
I think you can.
Okay, I will move that we.
Just do it.
And it's been seconded by Lori.
Yeah, okay,
How
yeah.
about that? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will add as a action item B, approval of food services price changes. Okay. With that, we will move into the second public comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Pen almost doesn't work.
Me too.
I'm Ray Kaiser, 828 Sun Valley Court, Silverton. I watched, of all places, your special meetings, 2 of them in July, on YouTube. Okay? That's a new experience for me. Okay. And so, but you spent, in one of those meetings, maybe both of them, I don't remember exactly, you spent quite a bit of time talking about the language of the superintendent's contract. Some of it was for the interim, some was for the more permanent contract. And so, to me, it's the more permanent contract is the one of interest. And so, the point that I want to make is the particular item that you were talking about had to do with language, something to the effect that board members, I don't know if it's must or shall or required, but anyway, board members will inform the superintendent of comments or criticisms or whatever it might be. Okay, language to that effect. And there was some discussion about what does that mean? And I would be inclined to say, well, first of all, I don't think that kind of language ought to be in the contract. But the point I would make is if you don't know what it means, then an attorney's got to clarify it, or it doesn't belong there, one or the other. And so that's really the gist of what I want to say. But Irv's not here to defend himself, and so I'm going to paraphrase, I think, what I heard Irv say. I thought he implied that you guys are wasting time talking about some language. Now, that may not be maybe a harsh statement, but I kind of picked that up. And so I would disagree with Irv in that regard. The contract is a legal document, and the words in that contract can be litigated. Okay, that's why it's so terribly important. And so that's why if words are not really clear, they need to be cleared up or be taken out. But Irv also said a tremendously important part of working with the superintendent and the board is the issue of honesty and trust. So I would certainly agree with that part. And so a suggestion, it could be a crazy idea. Maybe you could consider doing the legal part, the contract, very clear, very concise, and so on. But on the side, something that you wouldn't litigate is a working agreement. This is how we're going to work together. Okay? There we go.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you.
Sarah Weitzman, Silverton. I just wanted to say thank you to Director Traeger because I've been coming to school board meetings for, since, 2014, 2015, and I've never heard a presentation regarding contract negotiations before, and I thought the transparency and the thoughtful report that you gave was just really, really nice for a community member to hear. So just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay. With that, we are going to move to our action items. And the first item is the appointment and approval of contract for Paul Peterson, candidate for interim superintendent for the 2019-2012 school year. And before we get to that, a couple of quick things that I'll just mention. First, I want to recap mostly for the public a little bit about the process. It was kind of a compressed schedule, and as you all knew, that we were asked, we hired OSBA to assist us with the process. Many of us are new to this. In fact, I think everybody is new to the idea of hiring a superintendent.
Yeah.
And so we hired them, and it was a pretty aggressive schedule. We wanted to have a superintendent in place before school started. That was kind of a goal that we had put in place. So they helped us draft press release and spread the word, solicit applications, and it worked. We had 21 applicants for this position. That says a lot about this district, in my opinion. It says a lot about the town that we live in, the communities that we are part of, and it says a lot about the school. So we authorized the formation of a screening committee consisting of community members, teachers, classified staff, administrators, and as well as the board, and Debbie and Dan. And I mean, it was a broad array of people on the screening committee. And went through this process and went down to the point where we narrowed it down and had interviews and have ultimately culminated in this point tonight where we are happy to have this action item on the table. So for those who are interested in more information than that really quick summary, by all means feel free to reach out to myself or anybody else on the board. We can share a lot about the process. We of course can't share anything that happened in executive session, but we can share a lot about the process that we went through. And I guess with that, I will move that we approve the contract for Paul Peterson, candidate for interim superintendent.
I'll second that.
But I think, Mr. Chair, the chairman can't make a motion. Do I have that right?
I just said that the chairman could make a motion. Maybe I misheard you as I.
No, I'm sorry, back then, I meant to state that you didn't need the board approval to add an action item. That was mine. You're the chair, if you wanted to add it, you
Which
could.
is
And that's
fair.
just, and it's fine, but yeah, no
Fair.
offense, no offense, so,
None taken.
no offense.
I misheard you earlier.
This
So,
one's an important one, so we better.
For sure.
Yeah.
I will accept a motion to approve.
There we go.
The contract for Paul Peterson.
I second. I second.
Oh, no, you move it.
Oh, I move.
Someone has to make the motion.
Oh, I'll make the motion that we accept the contract for Mr. Paul Peterson as intern at Silver Falls.
I second it.
Second.
Thank you.
There we go.
At this
Got it.
point, it's been moved and seconded, and I would like to open it up for any discussion and any thing anybody wants to add before we move to a vote.
I would just add that the process was, as you've alluded to, very robust, slightly hair-pulling at times, because OSBA really worked us through a process, but I appreciated it, because I felt like it was really, I feel really good with the process that we went through, and I think it was very helpful to have them guiding us through that, so I feel very comfortable with where we ended up.
I wanted to thank the people that did some extra duty. I think Janet did some extra duty on reference checking. Lori did some extra duty with negotiating. Jonathan did extra duty with the contract. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate, everybody's putting in a lot of hours.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to say that it was a pleasure to have really good discussions amongst ourselves. It was a very interesting process, but it was really healthy to go through this with each other. And the work was amazing, and I want to thank the rest of you for doing so much work with this process. So it's quite a big job.
Well, it was all new for us, too.
Yeah.
And so
But it was
we all
fun.
got introduced to something that we had never been a part of before, and we'll never forget. I mean, it was
Yeah.
intensive, but it was, I look back at it, and the enrichment that I got, the deliberations, the interviews and everything, I mean, that's just indelible. It was very valuable.
Okay, well, I'm going to proceed us to a vote and then
Okay.
go from there. So, all those in favor of approving the contract for interim superintendent for Paul Peterson for the 2019-2020 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, signify by saying aye. Nay. Motion passes.
Very good.
And at this point, I want to say thank you, Paul, for everything. This has been a really interesting process. I'm going to give you a chance if you'd like to say a few words if you're interested. I can certainly also introduce you to them, but if you want to, I'd love to have you do it.
You introduce me and then I'll speak.
Okay. Paul, Paul comes to us with a bunch of prior experience at different locations, WSD and Scappoose and Klamath Falls. He's had experience as a superintendent, assistant superintendent, principal, as well as business manager and technology supervisor. There's a lot of different check marks you could check on your resume, right? I mean, you've really been there, done that. And I think in this particular year, all the different things we have going on, I think that is going to be a fantastic fit for us, and I really am glad that you applied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you for really running a nice process. I admire the transparency and the thought that went into it. I am very grateful to be here. I'm really honored to be selected. And I want you to know that I come to Silver Falls with no agenda other than to be the best champion for teachers and the best ally for kids that I possibly can be and for kids and their families. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to go to work here. I'm coming to work tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, so yeah, I got to find a motel tonight. So But I truly look forward to joining the team of professional educators here serving kids in our community. So thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay,
Oh, before we move on, I think we also need to give our no longer acting, our assistant superintendent some kudos because he's been doing a lot of extra work that he didn't anticipate as well as our board secretary who has been learning so much. Well, we've all been learning so much, but, well, yeah, everybody has. So thank you very much, board. Thank you.
I'll second that. It's been
Yes.
great working with you, by the way, and I'm not going to stop working with you because of this, but it's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we have an additional action item we need to take. I'll accept a motion to approve the food services price changes for the school year, the upcoming school year.
I move to approve the food service prices for the 2019-2020 school year.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the price changes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. And unless there's any other business, we are about to adjourn. Anything else before we do? Okay, we're going to adjourn.